I'm from Episerver. So, Anna, tell us a bit what you do at Where.
Sure. At Where I'm the analytics and search manager, so I help our clients understand the performance of their websites and how they can find opportunities to improve and search specifically for paid and organic search. And how about
Awesome.
you over at Episerver?
So I look after evangelism. So I work within the product marketing team. So I spend a lot of time talking to analysts, obviously our customers and our partners as well, and finding out, speaking to them about the market and what's important for them. And lots of our customers and partners have been focusing around on these upcoming Google changes. So it's great to join you today and to really get your take on it.
Yeah, should be really exciting, and we're so glad to have everyone here. So before we jump in, I just wanted to run through a couple housekeeping items. So we will be sending a recording today of the webinar. So if you're not able to stay for the whole thing, you will get this after the fact. And if you're watching this later, hello. You can submit some questions through the chat field. So we'll be keeping an eye on that. And if we don't get to your question right now, we'll follow up with you directly after the fact. And we have a special offer for any of the webinar attendees today. So we have a free 30-minute consultation that we can offer, and we hope to speak to some more of you later with that.
So that sounds like an awesome offer, Anna. Do you want to tell us about why and how Where is so positioned? Why have you a good opportunity to take this offer up?
Sure. A quick background, Where is a full-service digital agency. We've been around for more than 20 years, and we really focus on helping our clients grow through digital marketing strategy and activation. So what that kind of means is we really combine the design, technology, and marketing activation to help support our customers achieve their goals. And we specialize in, e-commerce, marketing optimization, and leveraging technologies to help our clients acquire, retain, and maximize their customers. And speaking of technology, one of our partners is Episerver, and we've been a partner for more than 6 years and are actually one of only 3 platinum partners in the United States. So we're really excited to have Joey here today to talk a little bit more about Episerver as well.
So it's awesome that you're a platinum partner. As you said, there's a very select group, so congratulations on that. To give you a bit of more info about Episerver. So Episerver is a full digital experience platform. That is to say, we have a very strong heritage in content and being able to create rich, engaging experience. We have the Commerce Cloud as part of our stack. For what's increasingly important is for organizations to be actually able to transact online, whether that's retail, B2B, different sectors. But also underpinning that with a really rich analytics and personalization capability as well. So we've got almost 250,000 users are logging in every week to update their digital experiences. Significant revenues going through the platform. We invest a lot in our roadmap as well, because we're supporting so many websites globally and organizations, and really helping them to compete digitally online. So one of the in terms of how the stack is set up, we have a very big focus on having the only customer-centric DXP in terms of how the tools, the capabilities that we offer all of our customers to help you support your customers better and to give them these really rich, engaging experiences. And one of the things we talk about is Episerver is perfectly suited for organizations that really need to tell a story online. So that's whether that's B2B or perhaps some of those brands that really have a strong brand identity, which can historically been challenged to get that message through digitally, but really using the power of content to convey that message to users. So really looking forward to today. So yeah, please, Anna, take it away.
Great. Thanks for that kind of quick background on Episerver. Now we're really going to jump into what we're here to talk about today. Very exciting. Google is adding this page experience, maybe UX or user experience, as a search ranking factor starting in 2021. Now, at the end of May of this year, they made this announcement that as of some point in 2021, these kind of core web vitals are going to be impacting your search rankings. So this is a little bit unique, and Google's giving you a lot of heads up, right? They're telling you in May of 2020 that in 2021, at some point, they're going to let you know with, under 6 months when this update will have an impact. So it's great that you're on this webinar today, because we're going to talk about some tools that you can use to kind of understand your performance now and how you can improve that when this ranking does kind of take effect. Now, Google cares about user experience, and they've been kind of hinting at this a lot over the past years, that you need to be thinking about your design and your websites from how the user is experiencing that. So they want to give you the best result in their search results for what you're searching. And that's not only just the query you're matching. So if you typed in a search result and you got a page and you went to the site and it was a poor experience, that's not good for them to provide you that experience. So really, they're focusing on the overall experience and giving that to the user. And this update really kind of supports that.
And what wasn't UX already important? I mean, in terms of, we've seen that Google talk about this in the past. So what wasn't this? Where's the news?
Exactly. So a lot of the SEO community has been saying, this really isn't a huge update. There's nothing really new here. A lot of these updates have already been leading toward this, like you're talking about, like in Mobilegeddon, when Google said, we want you to improve your mobile experience for users, or the secure site. So making sure that users can trust your site by having that HTTPS, use. So a lot of these factors are already existing. This update's kind of Google repackaging or rebranding them and saying, these are the 3 metrics we want you to focus on, kind of really helping you focus and prioritize your teams, because a lot of these metrics were out there and there's a lot of different tools to measure them, but there wasn't any focus or priority. And if you worked with web teams, it's hard to get them to say, this is important and this is why. So really, this is Google's effort of saying, here's what's important. We're going to use this as a ranking factor. You can use these tools to measure them and prioritize and understand where you are now to make improvements for when this will take impact in 2021. And here's kind of just that fact again of how Google's explaining it. Really, this experience is how those users are perceiving your site. So it is really important about that perceived experience on your website in addition to the content they're looking at. And that's what Google is going to be using as a ranking factor, and how we can, look at some of these aspects of how to improve your site for this experience, which is kind of what we're going to talk about. So what are these factors play into page experience? And Joey, maybe you've seen, like you were saying before, a lot of these signals were already existing. Here we can see, content, mobile friendliness, safe browsing, HTTPS, intrusive interstitials. These core web vitals may be the newer piece. And a lot of these, we're not going to have time today. The webinar is only 30 minutes long. So we're not going to be able to cover all of these topics, but we do have, we're going to kind of focus in on these 4 topics. And in a takeaway, a PDF download that you'll get a checklist, we will kind of cover ways to improve all of these signals. So know that we're not going to talk about all of them. We're kind of going to start with these web vitals and then get into some content topics. So core web vitals, they kind of sound like a health check, like your health vitals, which is a good way to think about them, I think. It's definitely Google trying to help you, again, provide this unified guidance for the signals that are essential for delivering that great user experience. And there are 3. So this is where it looks a little bit technical. And again, we're going to kind of keep it pretty high level for you. So we're not going to get super into the details on this, but Google's documentation, if you've seen any of it, is really great. It's clear, it's detailed, it kind of explains all these different aspects of the core web vitals. So a few things you should note about these. There are 3 here. We have loading, interactivity, and visual stability. A lot of acronyms here: LCP, FID, CLS. And what Google said is that this is an evolving process. So these are the 3 for 2020 that are kind of their user experience signals. What you should also know is that there isn't one score for all of these. They each kind of play into the ranking and weight a little bit differently. So when you're looking at these, you can see they each have this threshold range where you have the green, the yellow, and the red. And for these, you want to have the majority of your pages be in the green, which is like 75% of your page loads. So as you kind of go through and look at these, it's important to know that there's thresholds. These are the three. And we're going to talk about these kind of more in depth as we move along, kind of what they mean, what they're looking at, how they measure, and how you can improve them.
Because they're still quite technical terminology, and I know from looking at the people on the web, the sign up on the webinar, there's plenty of technical people on, but also just to sort of break it down into sort of a bit more marketing speak, and just kind of what does this mean for me in my daily job, and what are the things that I need to look at?
Yeah, exactly. So we, like you're saying, we're going to break each one down into kind of a question and more like basic terms in terms of what this looks like when you're on a website. So for the first one, largest contentful paint, again, yeah, like you're saying, LCP sounds really technical, but really what they're looking at is loading. So maybe have you ever been in this situation when you're on a site and it's not loading?
Too many times.
Yeah, so it's not a great experience. So really Google's trying to fix that and make, they want to make sure that these pages are loading fast. And specifically for this metric, they're looking at the largest image or maybe video that's loading within your viewport or your screen that you're looking at without scrolling, and how long that takes to load. So the main image within your screen or video, that's kind of what they're measuring. In this example here, you can see this image would be kind of the image that would be the largest contentful paint, what they're measuring, how long that takes to load. And the target here is less than 2.5 seconds. So if you have content that's not in this range, not in the green, how can you improve it? A lot of this has to do with images again. So compressing and caching your images and video to help that load faster. Additionally, you can lazy load your images, meaning if you have multiple images on one page, load one image first, and then as users engage and interact with the page, load those as needed so it's not such a heavy lift, right, up front for that biggest piece. And then we're not going to talk about all these, and some of them do get more technical, so definitely, again, talk with your web teams, work with your developers or designers, but definitely some great tips here, including like using web-hosted fonts so that you're not downloading a bunch of fonts from a site that you don't need. Now, these do have a lot to do with images. I don't know, any thoughts on image optimization from your end, Joey?
Yeah, it's one of the main things that we see that slowing down sites where people, there's these very, very large images getting put on. And one of the things that we're specifically looking at the moment in coming up in an upcoming release is the automated image optimization, because busy marketers or editors that work on the site, to slow down their work as they're kind of working doing the images, well, let the technology take care of that. And so to automatically optimize those images for you. Because yeah, we just see it time and time again. So again, let the software do the heavy lifting on that, so you can kind of focus on creating those fantastic campaigns.
Yeah, and that's great. I think another point is to say that you don't just optimize these sites for performance once. You have to kind of continually monitor these, right? These metrics, you're not going to be able to just go in and fix things once and be done. It's going to be kind of a continuous process, ongoing, much like any other SEO process. So it kind of fits the bill. The next metric is the first input delay, or FID. And really what this is talking about is interactivity. So have you ever been on a site and you're trying to click a button, but nothing's happening? That's, maybe you refer to it as a click rage. You're trying to click, 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 and nothing's happening. So that's, again, not a great experience, and Google's really trying to help people understand how to improve this. So what they're measuring here is the time it takes from your browser to respond to that first kind of interaction, that click or keystroke or tap or whatever users are doing on your site. So they have a measurement for this. And your goal is to be under 100 milliseconds, or else people are going to get frustrated and then leave. Not a great user experience. And usually what happens is this is due to like a lot of heavy JavaScript loading. So a lot of code loading up front that's kind of blocking your browser from recognizing that interaction. And how you can improve that potentially is just optimizing or eliminating any unnecessary JavaScript. So just making it lighter and easier to get that browser to react faster. You can also use indicators to acknowledge inputs. So what that means is if you have a form or a button, something changes, you can let the user know that something's happening. They're not left hanging, right? You put something in the form and there's like a little circle icon saying like, yeah, we know you're doing something. So they don't get frustrated and they understand what's happening. I think another piece here that's more of just a user experience aspect is, in general, you want to make sure you're creating that clear layout and users understand what is interactable on your site and what isn't. So I think there's probably a different type of issue on your site if you have, for example, on a product page, we see this a lot. If your product title is clickable, but the image isn't, and users think they can click on the image, but then they're clicking it and nothing is happening. It's not interacting, but it was never meant to be. So just in general, making sure you have that well-defined kind of clickable elements and interactions on your site. I don't know if you've experienced that at all or had any click rage, hopefully not recently.
Yeah, I mean, I know all about click rate, but I think it's especially true on mobile as well, where maybe you don't have the real estate to play with, and the pages have to be optimized that much better because people may be on the go as well, and they're not going to have the patience to have the page shifting around underneath them. So again, as you say, it's Google looking out for the interests of the end user in creating that, supporting that great experience.
Yeah, definitely. So the last piece for the core Web Vitals is this cumulative layout shift, or CLS. I think this one sounds the most technical, and it's really visual stability. So thinking about if a website jumps around or it's kind of difficult to read, I think for this, it is actually what it measures is the amount of unexpected shifts in the page. And you frequently see this with ads. If you think about maybe if you've been, especially like you're saying on mobile devices, if you've been reading maybe an article on an ad and then all of a sudden this ad pops in and it drops your text down and you have to find your place again and you're like, what just happened? Where did this random ad come from? So definitely moves things around on the page unexpectedly. And again, not a great experience, can cause frustration. Here in this example, maybe this shows it a little bit better. You're on this orders page, you tried to go back, this top kind of pro tip jumped in, this content loaded after the fact and pushed that interaction down. So you actually ordered when you weren't really trying. So I'll play that again. So here, you have these buttons and our calls to action, right? Something else loaded, it got pushed down, and that's not ideal. This is probably the worst case scenario. I really hope no one has this going on their site, but that's kind of what they're measuring, how much of that is happening on your site, and obviously not a great experience for the users. So you want to reduce that, and you can do that. I like to think about this, not a very technical term, but I think about reserving space for like the correct amount of space. So you can do that a number of ways by specifying like image width and height, so that kind of the browser understands that there's going to be something that's loading here, so I shouldn't put anything there that might jump up or down. So you can also do that by maybe eliminating, or like we were saying, optimizing ads. Those ads are a frequent cause of this by loading in the wrong sizes and jumping the content up and down. So really just thinking about how you can reserve the right amount of space so that the page doesn't jump around after content is loaded after the fact, or different things pull into the page. Yeah, I think so. That's really like, I think the worst case scenario we showed here. So hopefully no one has that happening on their site. But how do you understand the current performance of your website across all of these vitals right now? And that's why I was saying Google also did a great job in terms of giving you access to a ton of tools. And like I said, a lot of these were already previously available, but there wasn't as much focus or kind of prioritization. But now, in this kind of screenshot on this page, you can see this is the Google Search Console Core Web Vitals report. And you can see this now if you have a Search Console account. You can go in there and it'll show you right under here under the enhancements, Core Web Vitals. It'll group together pages that may or may not have any issues with these 3 Core Web Vitals, loading, interactivity, visual stability, and then you can kind of dive in from there. So a bunch of other tools here as well that are listed. Some are more technical focused, some are kind of like a good starting point, like Search Console. And these 3 at the end we kind of mentioned because they're more user experience focused. So Mousewheel, Hotjar, Crazy Egg, you might not have those, but it'd be a good way to understand more of that, why people are maybe having click rage on your site. If you're seeing that you're having that problem, you can kind of dive a little bit deeper using some additional tools. Any other tools, Joey, I know like that you're using that I didn't mention here?
Well, one of the things that editors and marketers love working with in Epi is there's a whole selection of add-ons and things available from a marketplace, but also within the application itself to check as you're creating that content. So a lot of this is going to be, after the fact and reviewing what has happened, but also tools for your editors while they're creating content to make sure they've got the right things in place for things like SEO, for accessibility, and of course, Google loves accessibility. So making sure as you're creating that content, you can ensure it's going to be optimized as well. So absolutely use all of these things, but also have in mind, again, as you say, it's that kind of ongoing process, and just build that into your processes so you're not having to go back and fix stuff. It becomes sort of part of your normal daily workflow.
Yeah. So great. And as we were saying, the next part, like a lot of these are already existing, and content has been a good existing search signal as well that we're going to talk about a little more in depth. And a thing to know here is that this update doesn't take the place of content. Actually, this page experience is more like a tiebreaker if you think about it. If you have two sites with great content and one has a better experience, that one will rank higher. But just optimizing for experience and forgetting about content, it's not going to really help you. It's really, they're focusing still content as a great, you need to have great content. And this is just like a tiebreaker that you can really improve in rankings after you have that great content. So how do we get great content, Joey? Why don't you talk a little bit more about that?
Absolutely. The way I'm going to address this, I'm going to look at the way that the Google talks about this kind of E methodology, EAT. And this actually, this has been around for a few years. Again, if you've been in SEO, there's nothing especially new here. But this, if you don't know, so this is laid out in a set of guidelines that Google gives each of its human reviewers. In terms of, it has about 10,000 human reviewers. There's a document, it's a couple of hundred pages long, that are actually going through. And the overriding message in that is when you're reviewing these sites and you're checking how good these sites are, then you're kind of following this EAT methodology. And so the EAT is expertise, authority, and trust. And so I'll spend a few minutes just talking through each one of those. And one of the first things to look at is this expertise. So does your site convey a level of expertise? So is it focusing on the user and their challenges? Is it credible? Is it based around the intent of the user? Are you really being able to convey your expertise as an organization? And there's quite a specific way that Google looks at this, and then it says if there's uses the acronym YMYL, which is your money or your life. And so they're essentially Google saying this is especially important, this level of expertise is especially important in organizations that are maybe law, legal, health, or importantly for commerce as well. So something that's effectively your money, that's going to affect your bank balance, or your life, something that's going to affect your health. And so Google's looking at this and saying, this content in these areas needs to be especially scrutinized. And if we're going to rank it, then it needs to ensure that it's of the highest quality and that they're really talking around that expertise. The next thing is around authority, that it's around the quality of the site. So is the content that's being produced of high quality enough that they made enough of an authority so that people are pointing to the site and looking at the site and referencing it as a sort of a point of truth around any given subject or topic. Again, your money or your life is going to come into this, around the financial and the health aspects, but also the commerce aspects. And again, that thing around social proof as well. And lastly is the trust aspect. So are there using clear reviews? Using HTTPS? Is there clear information about who created the content? So the days of people just looking around and they're just throwing up built for SEO sites with very sort of thin content from relatively untrustworthy sources. They were just scraping from elsewhere on the web and then building up these sort of huge data sets of web content and publishing them. They might not have that level of trust. So this is the EAT methodology of Google. So as you're sort of reviewing your own content on your site, are people trusting it? Is there kind of this authority and this expertise there? And the other thing that comes on the trust there is the website, the platform itself. is secure, and one of the things they're looking at is whether that site has been breached. So Episerver last year for our customers, we mitigated almost 700 million different threats, and that's people actively trying to attack these sites, and the platform took care of those things. But imagine that double whammy for your organization is obviously a breach would be horrendous, but then if you could then get penalized by Google off the back of that for having been breached in the first place. So having your site hosted in a cloud secure architecture and kind of mitigating that threat for your own organization is incredibly important for your SEO as well. So one of the things we look at with content is incredibly important and how you kind of build that trust and that authority within your users is the personalization of content as well. So where you might be putting out one single message towards all your customers, and you might be starting to dabble in some kind of manual segmentation. So you're building that trust and building that authority for your users, so people are more inclined to reference you, more inclined to link to you because you become more of an authority in that area. But to create these kind of one-to-one journeys for customers, which I know is the ambition of lots of organizations, that really struggle to do that because you can't personalize right down to that level for hundreds of thousands of visitors with potentially hundreds of thousands of different content items. So using AI-based automation for personalization becomes really important. So as I said, you're going to have lots of different visitors with different needs over time. You're getting tens or hundreds of thousands of different pieces of content. It could be blog posts, articles, videos, user guides, product pages, and you just can't physically do it as an individual. So using AI to actually to build that capability, so you can actually be reaching people with the right content wherever they are in the journey about understanding you. So again, that's encouraging them to link to you and building that authority, because the content you're giving them is very relevant to their needs and their requirements at that given time.
What does Episerver have anything for content? You're talking about like evaluating it. Is there anything that people could use to look at their content on their site?
Yeah, so one of the pieces we've got at the moment, we've got a content diagnostic offer, which we did in kind of response to COVID for lots of our customers and the kind of wider community, to really where there was lots of people coming to customer sites and very sort of challenging understanding what it is they're looking for, what their intent is. And we created a content diagnostic offer, which is basically a free version of one of our tools that automatically tags all your content, provides analytics around that content, and actually demonstrates to you as the site owner what the intent is of you, what part of the content are people reading and reviewing as part of those kind of goals you kind of laid out. What's the objective of the site in the first place? So that offer is running now to the end of September, and I urge anyone to get in touch and take advantage of that offer. So and there's that's on top of all the other metrics that you can use within your organization, how people are actually using your site, you're increasing the demo requests, people sharing your content, making sure that your content is being engaged with by the users to actually understand its effectiveness. I think we've all been in or worked with organizations who are creating lots and lots of content, but they don't know how valuable it is, and they don't know what customers are actually finding valuable and fulfilling the very purpose of that content in the first place.
Yeah, I think that's great understanding, like you're saying, how that content is performing and different measures we can put here for analytics or other things you can track for your own content to track that. Well, that's so great. I think we're just about here at time. We do have some resources again. We shared that list of tools to measure at the beginning. Joey mentioned the content offer from Episerver, and we also you'll be getting this page experience checklist that goes through all of the page experience updates with some ways to improve those as a follow-up to this webinar. So a lot of great resources. I think hopefully you had some questions that were answered. I'm going to see if there's anything else that people have sent in through the chat here that we could answer before the end of this webinar. And also a reminder that as a webinar attendee, you can contact us for a 30-minute consultation. So please reach out. This is something your organization is thinking about or looking in the future and wants some more information. We're happy to connect. But I'm going to look through And some other questions to see if we have anything going on here. There was one question from Paul that asked about how AMP fits into all this. So isn't necessarily, this came out with the page experience update, so it's focused on it, but it's not necessarily the same. AMP are those accelerated mobile pages, and hidden within this page experience update was this note that said, basically, you don't need to have the AMP anymore to appear in Google's mobile stories carousel. So they're kind of almost phasing AMP out. So if you're using that, that's important to you. If it's not, you probably don't have to start using that. It's more of an update that AMP is no longer required. So that's kind of snuck into this update as well. We have a question from Aaron about how the content recommendations tools know, can they use that tool on another site, or how does it know to get trained on the right content?
Yes, so absolutely. So that tool is available on all platforms. So whether you're using Episerver today or another platform for your content. And in terms of how it's understanding that content, it's tracking every single, automatically tagging every piece of content. So it's using a taxonomy of, I think it's about 20 million different phrases. And it does that automatically in minutes. And I know organizations have tried to do that content tagging manually, and they're huge projects. So being able to do that automatically is a huge benefit. And then really understanding how users are interacting with that content and then going on to fulfill certain goals is actually understanding the relevancy of that content towards those tasks. So it knows then it can work out exactly what to serve that person based on their intent, the intent signal to date.
Great. Well, I know we're at time here, so if there are other questions, we can definitely send those out in the response as a follow-up to this webinar. And we really appreciate, Joey, you being involved today, and thank you everyone for joining. I hope you learned something about the page experience update, and please reach out if you have additional questions. Have a nice rest of the day.